started, but we are continuing part one of the RPA today, which is the residential purchase agreement. We started this last Wednesday, so I'm going to skip over some of these slides, but I want to do a quick review, and then we will go directly into the following pages of the RPA. If you missed last week's, it is recorded, it is in Slack, so please go back and look at it. The very first page we will gleam over today, but I want to get through hopefully a good portion of the rest of the pages. Please feel free to unmute and ask questions as you need to. So the RPA is a residential purchase agreement. You are going to need to know this form very well. It is not only when you're dealing with a buyer that you're dealing with this. You are writing it on behalf of your buyer, but you're receiving this when you're working with a seller and someone is writing you an offer for your client as a seller. So when we write an offer, we have to structure the risk. We're defining protections and exposure for our client. So this goes both ways. You have to see what the structure is when you're working with a seller to see what a buyer is offering. So both sides, you need to make sure that you're looking at the risk for your client. Then there's strategy. There's strategy from both sides. We have to make sure that we're translating what the person is telling us on the RPA and what we're writing on an RPA to go over to a seller. This helps us create leverage in the deal. This is a contract, but this also makes our first impression. When you're writing it and you're sending it over to a seller or a seller's agent, you're making an impression on how well you know what you're doing and how well you know your client. And then also when you're receiving an RPA from the other side, you know if they understand how to write an offer and really who you're dealing with from that side. It's very important that that first impression, that we're taking it seriously and we understand that this is the beginning of a negotiation. This is the beginning of our strategy. We don't want to throw it together or write it real quick because we want to get an offer in. This is actually the start of what could translate into a sale that actually goes through. A poorly written RPA could end up losing a deal. So we want to make sure that we're hitting the points that we need to hit, that we understand the contract. We understand it better than our own client. We're the ones walking them through it. We want to make sure that they understand the strategy that we're taking, that they're part of those decisions. So the RPA, like I said, is a residential purchase agreement. This is a legally binding document. It has financial structure, including the EMD or the earnest money deposit, the loan amount, any credits, down payment, and they all have to reconcile precisely, which is what we went over last week when we went over that first page. Then we also structure timeline around this. We structure when due diligence is due, when we expect inspections to be due, when contingencies happen. So all of that needs to be written out in the RPA. So this is not just admin work. This is us completing something very key in a real estate transaction. Again, on both sides, you're going to see this. This is not just for buyers, this is for sellers as well. This is something you're going to see whether it doesn't matter the client you're working with. And you could be seeing it from both sides if you're working with both sides of the client. And in those cases, you're going to have to even be more intentional because you're working with both clients and you need to make sure that you're holding both of their best interests. So the math has to add up perfectly. The EMD plus the loan plus the balance of the down payment needs to equal the total purchase price. We do not round. We need to make sure there's no discrepancies. We all have a calculator on our phone. We all have a way to do this. And if you need to, put it into Excel to make sure it maps out, but make sure that you're doing this with intention. Contingencies and the dates need to be clear. We will go over section 30 again. That's the additional terms. There needs to be no blanks. You can put not applicable or none or cross it out. But you need to also make sure that if you're leaving a blank, then there's going to be an issue down the line. On my first one, I left the warranty blank. Do they want a warranty? I didn't put none. I didn't put not applicable. Did it close the deal? Did it fall through? No, but I had to have an addendum that I attached later. If you had just known up front that I couldn't leave blanks, I would have stopped and said, okay, I need to have this discussion with my client. So your offer is your buyer's first impression. It's also your first impression. We need to treat these with care. So here's some reasons why deals fall apart. Again, I'm going to go through this pretty quickly because we did go through it in detail last week, and I want to get a little bit further today. Occupancy box is on that first page. We're going to look at it again. We have to make sure that's done. Seller credits not disclosed in area 9D. Required addendum missings, HOA addendums, wire fraud advisories, those type of things. Vague section 30 language, that's our additional documentation area instructions, and we'll look at that again today. Incorrect contingency dates. This will misalign your entire timeline. And then blanks. Those are all common mistakes. So where strategy comes, we need to understand the financial details. You can pause and say, I don't know how to fill this out. Ask questions or go back to your client. It's better then than filling it out partially or incorrectly and then having to unravel it. We need to look at doing this the correct way the first time and then trying to unravel everything on the back end. We need to understand our financial strategy, the timeline, the contingencies, and then occupancy, and then any extras like post-possession, whether it's an investment, and so forth. Okay, so page 1. We're going to go through this pretty quickly. EMD is earnest money deposit. That's in field 1A. Additional deposit is optional, but typically you're going to be putting you could put something down if you wanted to sweeten the offer. Then the loan amount is 1C. Assumption of the loan is rare. Promissory note is rare. But if you ever do come into one of those things, we'll use those fields, but it's extremely rare. Balance of down payment. The down payment minus the EMD. The EMD, the earnest money deposit, if the sale goes through, is counted towards the down payment. So they're not losing that. They're at the end of the deal, when everything is said and done, that EMD goes towards the down payment on the loan. Full amount loan, which is the loan plus the down payment. And then occupancy. We must indicate if a buyer will live in the home. So these are the key things. And here, right here in pro tip, line, it will tell you that everything must add up. 1A plus 1B plus 1C plus 1F equals 1G, which is the full amount. The full amount of the offer. So this is the first page that we went over last week. So you're going to typically be doing this through transaction desk, which is in your MLS. We're going to go over there. I'm going to show you where to find it. But I want to go over this page pretty clearly, and then we'll go over and I'll show it to you in transaction desk. So the date is obvious, right? Then the buyer, who is buying the agreement. If you're representing the buyer, then you would be filling this out. If you're receiving it from the seller, then this would have already been filled out. You'd be receiving this. The property address, the city, the county, state, the APN number is the parcel number. You can find that within the tax records. So when you're filling this out, don't freak out. That is part of what we can find out. It's not hard. For the purchase price of blank, this is what their offer is. It is not the whole purchase price. If the house is $500,000 and they're offering $480,000, this would be $480,000 here. Now, number 7. The terms and conditions contained herein, the buyer does or does not intend to occupy the property as a residence. I'm going to go over this and harp on this one because this is so important. That's why it's on only line 7. We have to fill this out. Now, I have heard buyers say, why does it matter? I'm buying the house. Why do you care whether I'm living there or not? We do. It's required. It doesn't matter whether you don't want to tell us or not. We have to know this will get rejected. We can't put in an offer without that being filled out. And you can't accept an offer without it being filled out. So the loan will not go through, the property will not close without that being filled out. So then there's the EMD, which we talked about. This is typically on the MLS where you put either your seller is determining that, it could be $5,000. I've seen them up to $50,000. It could be $1,000, but that's the earnest money deposit. That is a good faith deposit. Some clients don't understand what that means. That is you saying, I am putting money down in good faith that I'm going to be going through with this transaction. That is making sure that your offer has been accepted, your money has been put down. So we need to make sure that if you are negotiating the earnest money deposit, let's say it is requiring 10 grand and your buyer only wants to offer 5, they can negotiate that. Typically, you don't see that, but that is a negotiable amount. Then additional deposit. And then is it contingent on a loan? Is the person already pre-qualified? If they're not, this is a contingency offer. And what type of loan it is. This agreement is contingent upon buyer qualifying or assuming the existing loan. Assumption of a loan is very rare and it's very difficult. It can be done, but it takes a lot longer than a normal escrow. If that does come up, please see Aaron, please see myself, and we can go over it, but it is going to be handled a little differently, and it probably will not be done in 30 days. From a promissory note, very rare. You're not typically going to see that. Then this is the balance of the purchase price minus the EMD. And then this would be your total purchase price. So if you put up here that the total purchase that you're negotiating is $480, all of these amounts should total $480 down here. So if it doesn't add up, if you add up the earnest money, the deposit, the loan amount, and you actually get down here and it doesn't add up to $480, we've done something wrong. All of this amount of money should be add up to the total amount that you're offering. In this scenario is $480. So everything else should be zeros. If you're not doing something with that field, it should be not applicable or zeros. But since these are dollar amount fields, I suggest you put 0. But don't leave any blank. Yes.
When we go back up and you mentioned on the first line how the full amount says right next to it purchase price, but can be it doesn't have to be the price that they're asking selling for. It could be the offer price, the 480 instead of the 500. Why wouldn't it? It's a little confusing. Why wouldn't it also have offer amount? Because that's always standard. You can put in, if it's 500, let's say someone ridiculous wants to say, I want to give them 400, 100K less. They can put in 400, and this is just a purchase agreement. It will obviously get rejected, but they can put in any amount they want, 200, 300, as ridiculous as it sounds on that purchase price.
Yep.
Even though it doesn't say offer, because it's kind of misleading. It always says purchase price as opposed to or/offer amount.
No, this is your buyer agreement for a house.
Mm-hmm.
So it doesn't have to say offer amount.
Mm-hmm.
This is what they're agreeing in an agreement to pay for it.
Not the final doc.
Not the final docs.
Okay.
It is not the loan docs. It is not the extra docs. This is your full, like, I want to do this. And you agree with it.
You agree with it. And it's yes or no, as ridiculous as it is. It will get denied, but you can put any amount you want there.
Yep.
For the buyer.
Or you could put $1. Yeah. Could we say that's absolutely ridiculous?
Yeah.
and most likely it's gonna get rejected, you need to have that conversation with your client. You put down, it's a $500,000 home, and you put 250. I would be having a serious conversation,
Unless you're really lucky.
just so you know, where we could be wasting a lot of time.
Okay.
Okay, now, it can be an insult, right? So you put, let's just say they did put 250 on here.
Yeah.
It goes to the seller. The seller could counter, right? Obviously, they probably will. They'll counter and say, no, 500. Let's just say, this example, they counter at 500. But they could say, instead of countering, absolutely not. And now I don't want to deal with you.
And
Now that
that's
is their first and last agreement.
So make it reasonable, but any amount that's reasonable, you can offer.
Well, you can,
Line.
yeah, whatever the buyer wants, you legally need to represent what they want. So even if they did want to put $1 in there and you advise them, this is bad. It's not going to be accepted. But if you want me to, I will, as your agent, it is up to you. You put $1 in that field and you put it over. I would warn them that you may think this is funny, or you may hope that this is going to go through, but it may go over, and now instead of countering, they'll just say, I don't want to deal with you completely.
I will both ways.
Now you've lost the house. You are an unreasonable person. Now you can't go back and deal. They're not going to want to deal with you again. You want to make sure that it's reasonable. But you need to have that discussion. But regardless, if they ask you as your agent, I want you to put $1 on that purchase agreement, you need to do it.
That makes sense. Thank you. I thought purchase price is always what they're offering.
No.
I mean, what the purchase price is, and then negotiation comes after the lines below.
Now,
Okay.
now, when you do a purchase agreement, I may have mentioned this last time, but I think it needs to be reiterated. Call the listing agent, have a discussion before you're putting this together.
A realistic
Let's say,
number.
do you have offers on the property? Is there many offers? You can ask, can you share with me what the offers are? So as part of the listing agreement, so I know we're not going over the listing agreement, but when a seller agrees for you to be the agent of their listing, okay? There's actually a space on that agreement that says, are you going to allow me as your listing agent to share with another agent if there's offers? So they actually agree to what information they can give to the other agents.
And that benefits the whole sector.
But
Sellers.
some sellers will say, absolutely not. You can't even tell them if there's offers.
And
They have
at
to
that
call
point, they just say,
No, I can't disclose it.
And you have to kind of wing it and do something realistic and negotiable. Okay.
Now, there's actually two areas. Am I allowed to say that there's offers? Yes or no? And then there's another area saying, am I allowed to tell them the details of the offers? They can say yes or no. So some agents will be able to say, yes, there's offers, and that's it. Some agents will be able to say, yes, there's offers. The highest offer is $515. So it depends on what the seller's allowed. So don't feel insulted. Like if the listing agent says, I can't share that, it's not against you. It's not that you're not convincing as an agent. It's just that they're not allowed to disclose. But most of the time, I would say 99% of the time that I've dealt with a listing agent, they have disclosed it and they've told me the details of the offer. Now, that saves you guys all time.
That would save a lot of hassle.
Because if there's no offers, let's just say there is none, which I've had that, I can feel it out. I can say, okay, I had one where the house was listed at 700, been sitting on the market for 300 days. No offers, right? My client wanted to offer 640. Comp said it should be 665. Okay, I get it. So I said to the listing agent, what are the chances? If we offer 640, is it even going to be considered?
It's actually pretty strong considering that every situation is unique. In that case, it's a fair.
Yeah. So, and the listing agent could come back and actually say, I wouldn't even share that with my client because their client already gave them instructions. I will not even accept this. Okay. And so then what they would say is, I would give it to my client. You know, I would present it to my client if there is no cap amount that the client's given them. So in my case, the listing agent said, absolutely. Like, I'm gonna give them every offer because it's been sitting out there for 300 days.
I probably would too.
And the comps did say 665 was, you know, a good offer. My client's like, okay, let's offer less. Okay, so that one conversation with a listing agent could save you an offer, a counter offer, an offer.
I wasted.
It's just time wasted. So have that discussion. We can't guarantee they're not going to counter, but at least you know that you're putting something reasonable out there and you're not wasting your paper.
Curious if I'm sure if they take the offer. At your 640, out of curiosity.
They countered at 650.
Okay, fair.
Okay,
But
but,
it's what
but I knew that they would present it. If they're not even going to present my offer, why am I writing it?
right.
So give me the amount that they agreed to be presented with. Like if he told me, yeah, they're not going to even look at it unless it's less than 650,
Don't bother.
I would go to my client and say, they're not even going to look at it. My client could still say, offer 640. I go, just so you know, they're not even going to look at it. No, offer 640. Maybe they will look at it. They don't get that there's a lot of legality behind it and a lot of instruction that we're given as agents. All we can do is tell them the truth.
And offer what they are willing to pay for it.
The client told us to do it. I can tell them, like blue in the face, they're not going to look at it. They're not going to look at it. No, offer 640. Offer 640. Okay, that's what I'll do. Again, you may be insulting them. You know, they had it on there for 7. Reasonable is 665. We could have offered 640 and they could have said, you know, I don't even want to deal with these people anymore. Now it's math because we're trying to get the best negotiation. So when we do put this out there, you're not writing counter after counter after counter. Maybe do an addendum like, hey, now I want the seller to cover my warranty. Okay, that's an addendum. It's not a whole new purchase additional page. Yeah, it's an additional page. We're not rewriting this from the beginning. We're not starting all over again. So it's still negotiation after the fact. But let's try to get this as close to what we can start at
To get that house.
to get that house.
Okay.
How much time do you want to waste? And I cannot tell you how many agents don't call the listing agent. I'm like, why wasn't it accepted? Well, you didn't even look at comps, to be honest with you. I mean, and if you listen to your client and you don't explain comps, that's on you too. It is not their job. The client is not going to know. They're going to go on Zillow. They're going to look at a Zestimate. And they're going to go, no, it's what Zillow says, and they must be amazing. Zillow Zestimate is as accurate as Credit Karma is to your credit score. Credit Karma means nothing. It's free, right? A Zestimate is free. You get what you pay for.
And a rich rough number.
It's a rough number.
You know,
I mean, I had one client that the Credit Karma said he was at a 500 credit score.
but it's real.
But Jennifer ran it, he's 620. It could be way high, it could be way less. The estimates could be the same thing. You have to tell your client they cannot accept that. I always go back to, let's just say you look up on your, you know how you get your medical advice now on the portal?
Mhm.
And they give you all this gibberish and stuff like that. And you can chat GPT that shit. That's free, right? Chat GPT your little medical records and assume that it knows. Or do you want to pay your $20 to your doctor and go in with your copay and ask them for his advice?
With your actual record.
With your actual
Your
doctor that knows.
the real.
So chat GPT free. Or do you want to go in and talk to your doctor for a copay?
If it's serious, something serious with their health, you're gonna pay.
And this is a
huge
huge amount of money.
You don't mess around with that. Yeah.
So try to give them a metaphor that shakes them up a little bit. Because you may think that you have cancer based on ChatGPT saying that these results because they put all this gibberish. You talk to your doctor and they're like, no, it just said your T cells are up. Like, okay, so you got to get what you pay for. You don't, when something is free, you got to question it. Okay, so make sure that we're talking to the listing agent. But if for some reason these fields lets you add this should be equal to this. If it's not, you've calculated it incorrectly. And this price at G should match this.
The total price, yeah, okay.
And just think, if you're a professional, you're the seller, okay, you're representing the seller. Jessica has one of these. Jessica is representing a seller right now. She gets an RPA from a buyer, and Jessica's first impression is this price down here on line 37 doesn't match. So what's Jessica gonna think? She's gonna think that this agent is like, what the, I can't even look at this anymore. I don't even know what price.
It starts with that.
So now Jessica's like, I don't even know what they're trying to offer me. So she's gonna send it back. And now we've wasted what? Another 2 days, because they have 2 days to respond.
Fix the problem.
Fix the problem. Now we want to deal with them. Now, so, I mean, if I was Jessica, I would have called up the agent and been like, I don't even know what you're offering me. I'm not even gonna give this to my client.
It's incorrect, yeah.
And now Jessica has to question everything. Every offer she's not going to trust from that agent. She's going to have to pick through everything down to the APN number.
It's something that basic was.
And now she's going to have to, so that's your first impression. Now, if Jessica got one and she starts going through it and she's like, okay, this person has it together. Has it totally together, right? Like everything adds up correctly, everything, the APN number is perfect. And then they decide to counter. So Jessica's client goes, you know what, I'm going to counter back at 500,000. Like, I don't like backwards original price. Jessica's now knows that she's dealing with a good agent. So now when she counters, going back to that agent, because that first RPA was perfect, she knows she's dealing with a professional that understands the counter offer. Now, will she have to go back through every little detail again? Probably not, because she knows she's dealing with a professional. That's how it can change your entire transaction on how you see each other. And that RPA is your first impression on both sides, seller and buyer. So would you spend an extra half an hour to make sure this is correct? To make sure that they know they're dealing with a professional that knows what they're doing? Right. Or do you want to scribble past all this and get all messed up and then be like, okay, now they're not going to trust anything I say? So this really goes a long way on setting the tone. Okay, so here's a little bit of math workshop. Go when you guys, I think all of you have access, maybe not Justin and Jessica yet, but when you have transaction desk, and we're going to go over to the MLS in a minute, do a little workshop for yourself. You can bring up the form. I know we went through this with you, Cassie. You know, we brought up the BBRA and the duties owed, and you did your little template. You can do the same thing. Bring up the RPA. Do a little practice one. Choose a loan amount. Choose a home on the MLS. And just look at the MLS and make believe you're doing it, and make sure your math makes complete sense. Because you guys are going to hear a lot. How much is the down payment? You're not going to hear it's 60,000. You're going to hear it's 10% or 2%. So who's going to have to calculate that and make sure it gets it right?
You're the agent.
You're the agent. So I want you guys to, if you don't have access to the MLS, I want you to reach out to me. I will send you a blank copy of the RPA, and I want you to do a practice workshop and make sure that you understand. Do a scenario like I have one here mapped out, the purchase price, the down payment, the loan amount, and the EMD. You can make it up completely. You can use this scenario, but make something up, write it out or type it out, and make sure you understand how these are filled out and what fields should be zero and what fields should have something in them. It's not a big deal if you're not getting it perfect. I know it looks all simple, like this plus this plus this, but you're also doing calculations. So just keep in mind that we want to have this down when we're actually writing one. So now we're moving on to contingencies. Due diligence, you're gonna hear this that are typical. We need to take the word typical out of our vocabulary. Instead, say things like standard. It is a standard. Can it be changed? Absolutely. We still want to discuss it with our clients. Due diligence is typically, or what we actually is a standard is 10 days. That 10 days is our first contingency. That's our due diligence. Due diligence means inspection, appraisal, and that we can cancel for nearly any reason. So the EMD is due within usually 1 to 2 days. So we get our earnest money deposit. Let's say our due diligence is 10 days. So they can cancel for any reason up until that 10 days. You're getting your inspection done. You're doing all that. Now, it's the standard that after due diligence, those 10 days, if you walk away, you are losing your EMD. That means the earnest money deposit of 10,000 or 20,000, if they cancel after that due diligence, unless there's another contingency in place, they are losing that money. And I'm going to give this example, because I think I did it last time. We did have a client. It was the 10th day. They were actually smart enough to understand that they were going to lose their EMD. They were desperately trying to cancel, trying to reach their agent, and they couldn't
Get a hold of anyone.
Couldn't get a hold of anyone. So they freaked out. They went to Sean. They went to Roger. They tried to reach Aaron. Aaron was on vacation, freaking out. And the impression that when the agent finally got, into the mix was, I didn't know. But is that good enough? Because really, legally, if they didn't cancel on that day, they would have lost their money.
Yeah, and at that point, it's just an ethical decision. You were
No,
email, please. I would like to.
But then the agent would have been liable.
Right. Oh, the agent would have been liable, yeah. Which is
so there was out of your pocket $5,000
for not returning
all
all of due diligence or just finding out a way for her to get that message to the right agent.
Right. So I was doing the cancellation at 6 p.m. at night trying to get done, so we didn't lose that. Fine. So we need to understand our dates. We can't assume that you have the ability to cancel up until the date of escrow. That's not how it works. We have contingencies in place. Due diligence, inspection, appraisal, and then loan contingency.
And 10 regular days, not business days.
10
calendar days.
10 calendar days.
Okay.
So all of these are calendar days. Now, typical escrow, and I'm sure we've heard this even outside of being an agent, is 30 days. Can you do it faster? Yes. Does 30 days seem like a long time? It's not. It really isn't. When you think that inspectors have to get out there. I mean, you're dealing with, appraisers. You have to deal with loans. You're dealing with all these different companies coming together. An escrow company, they are finalizing loans that are hundreds of thousands of dollars. It takes time. Now, the shortest escrow I've ever seen is 14 days, and that was tight, and it was cash. So we're not talking about a loan being involved, and a bank being involved, and appraisals getting involved, and so forth. 20 days, 21 days is pushing it, but more doable for a loan. But if the person's living there, that's really hard, guys. Like if they're living there and let's say someone comes and wants to buy it in 21 days, think about everything they're doing. They're trying to sell their home. They're trying to move out of their home. It's not that long. 30 days sounds really long in your mind because it's a full month. It goes by so fast. I mean, it's April 15th and it feels like January 15th to me. So 30 days is not that long. But these are all dates we need to talk about. because there are some loans that automatically take longer. So I have a person that bought a home from me, and it was a special loan for a police officer. So this, because they were getting a special loan to the government for police officers, that loan by default took 41 days to process. Legally, they couldn't get that loan. There had to, so the bank itself that offered that type of loan took 40 days for their due diligence. You can't shorten that. I tried to, okay? I was like livid because I couldn't get into my house until this other house closed. There's no way around it. These are why we can't say typical. I'm gonna put these on the purchase agreement. It's gonna be 10 days. It's gonna be appraised in 21 days. It's gonna be, the loan is gonna go through in 30 days. That doesn't serve your client when you know different. You're not having that discussion. We have to have discussion. How long is it gonna take you to get that loan? Do you have a special loan? Is there special terms? These are all things you need to have in your back pocket when you're writing this agreement. So this is not something where you take a buyer on a showing, they fall in love with the house, and you're scribbling this together. You've got to slow down and make sure they understand that even if we rush it, it may not go through. This is why I tell agents and clients, if you rush it, you will ruin it. Anytime someone has rushed these things, they've ruined the deal. Slow down and make sure we do it correctly. Pause, ask the question. We can still do it fast if we just slow down a bit and understand our documents and what we have to ask. Now, due diligence, okay, we typically say is 10 days. What if they're out of state and they have to fly in to be there for the inspection? Typically, they don't. Well, what if they do? What if they want to fly in? They're going to need probably more than 10 days. I had a client that was out of state. They were in Iowa. They were buying in Nevada. That's beautiful. This is where they're retiring. They wanted to be there for the inspection. They chose the house. They flew back to Iowa. Okay, well, we need to do an inspection on the house you chose. I'm not going to get back there for 2 weeks. Great. Now, if I put 14 days in due diligence, does that affect my offer to the seller?
Not unless you've already spoken to the agent of the seller saying, I need 14 days now, let's extend that, and they approve it.
Well, as long as we're explaining ourselves. Don't just say, well, I need 14 days. I mean, it then feels odd, okay? If even when you go in with your RPA and it is a lower price, let's just say for my scenario, they offer $640. Tell the agent why. Tell the other agent, like, you can even send with the RPA comps. You can highlight what you've seen, what you've gone over with your client. You know, this is not a secret mission. We are not the CIA. We're trying to make a deal happen. Yes, we have to protect our clients' confidentiality, but you're not giving them, each other's bank records here. You're having a discussion about an offer on a house, and so there's a lot of things behind it. So in my case, I said to the seller, I said, we do need 14 days because my client is in Iowa and they really want to be there for the inspection. It has nothing to do with them not coming up with the money. We're pre-qualified. It is we're not backing out. This is not delaying. We're not purposely delaying the process. They're just buying from out of state and the inspections are just be clear. Just be clear. This is, you don't have to send it over and go, try to figure it out, people. What am I trying to do? We just need to communicate. We need to use our words. So due diligence appraisal is on the loan side. So we do an inspection on the buyer side. When the buyer gets a loan, that company, that bank, is going to want to appraise the value of the property to make sure that they're not giving a loan that's higher than the appraised value of the property. So if they're looking for a $600,000 loan, it's appraised for only $550. They're not going to want to give you a $600,000 loan. So they will go out and send an appraiser. The bank will, but it is your job to keep the timeline. So if due diligence is 10 days, we need to make sure inspectors go out there within 10 days, that we ask for repairs within 10 days. All of that is our due diligence. The bank that is doing the loan, unless it's a cash purchase, obviously, needs to send out someone to appraise. You gotta be contacting that bank. You better have a contact person for that loan. So you can go, when are you gonna appraise? When are you gonna appraise? When are you gonna appraise? Because that is your job to keep that timeline.
I have a question on appraisal, just from my own personal experience. A while back, people can always get their own, because I feel like appraisals could be done obviously by the bank, like you said, if that value is coming up with the comp, then they want to just send their own. And I forget who pays for that. And then we did our own appraisal. So you're able to,
You can get as many appraisals as you want.
right, okay, so I did our own and then they got another one. So that's fine. Just all
Yeah.
these appraisals, and is it worth it? Obviously, the bank one is mandatory because they're the ones who know, but on their side, if they want to pay for a separate appraisal, they can. And
They can.
does that have any standing to what the bank's appraisal is? If numbers are not met the same and one appraiser says one thing and one says the other,
No.
who are they going with?
The banks.
Of course, because they're the ones showing
They're
up.
the ones showing up the money.
Okay,
Now you can, if you want to get an appraisal to help you set the price.
Yeah.
For your home,
I think
you
that's
absolutely can do that. But just know that you're gonna have to pay for that. And if the bank comes in differently, that's
just.
who's giving you the money. You can go to a different bank, but you're gonna have to do that within your escrow period.
Right.
And figure that out. So again, we just have to keep this into perspective, but you are operating as the gatekeeper of this timeline of all the contingencies. When things start going wrong, you better be communicating. Okay, if we have to do an addendum to change a contingency, we got to do that in paperwork. We don't just say, shake hands and go, that's cool. You know, everything has to be done timely. And if something needs to change, we need to do it through paperwork in writing. Okay, so these are our typical strategies. So due diligence, 10 days, appraisal, 15 to 21, loan contingency, 28 to 30. We are not even talking about difficult contingencies. That is a whole nother class. This is the RPA. So this is the power of the contingencies. The appraisal and repairs has to be done within our due diligence, but we need to make sure that we can actually use these scenarios as strategy. We can put in the RPA that, okay, you're going to get your inspection during due diligence. We can put in the RPA that automatically the buyer approves that anything over $1,500, the seller needs to cover. Like, he'll cover up to $1,500 repair. The buyer's like, I'm fine with $1,500. But if there's anything that needs repair that's over that $1,500, the seller's gonna have to pay for it. Those are all conditions we can actually put in the RPA. So keep that in mind. There's additional instructions on the RPA that you can go in really good detail if you are really strategic about what is being offered. So we are gonna go quickly through just top RPA mistakes, and then I want to go over to the MLS.
Trina, really quick before you move forward.
Yes.
Following up to what you just mentioned about repairs, in what section we should be stating that in the case that the seller is willing to do repairs up to 1,800?
It would be right here in section 30,
Okay,
additional terms.
okay. Good, thank you.
Yeah, so actually in this example, see, the seller agrees to complete lender required repair resulting from appraisal not to exceed $1,500. See, this is very, very specific. In the event a buyer submits a request for repairs, concessions, or other terms related to physical condition of the property during the due diligence period, the due diligence period will automatically be extended for a period of 48 hours. See how clear that is. When we put vague terms and additional terms here, when we use vague language, it just sets us up for failure. We need to be very specific. So in this case, we're saying exactly if we find out that there needs to be a request for repairs, we are giving the due diligence an extra 48 hours. That's 2 days from the time of the seller's initial written response. So the due diligence can be extended. These time periods can be extended. It's based on what we do to make it very clear in the RPAs of what is the expectation. It doesn't mean we have to write a whole RPA, a new one, if something like this happens where we need 2 more days. We actually can set this forth in the beginning. That's where the discussion happens. Let's sit across from a table or on the phone with our client and go through this document. A little more time on the front end is going to save you a lot of time on the back end. So vague language here is always going to be an issue. We need to make sure that we are putting in any seller credits. We need to ensure we have addendums. Vague language, and I'll go over this over and over again. You can't put vague language. In the RPA, you could say, the buyer agrees to raise the offer by $1,000 if you include the dining room table. That could be a negotiation. Actually, that was a negotiation for my house. We specifically had a dining room table built for that room. It was huge. We wanted this huge dining room table. It just fit that room. When an RPA came over, they actually offered us like $3,000 for that dining room table just to leave it. I knew it wasn't going to fit in my new house.
So that was
So that was like, check.
You can't just leave it anyways.
No, we're planning on taking it and probably giving it to a friend or something.
Okay, but now you got 3,000 for it.
And they wanted it.
So that's easy.
So, but they put it in their RPA. They also wanted washer, dryer, fridge. I mean, they wanted almost everything from that house.
And it's up to you to say yes for this,
Yeah,
no for that.
That's
Right, no
on the counter, we can counter. But when they said that, I was like, $3,000, yeah, you can go ahead and have that.
It's
I'm gonna counter that.
on that.
And I didn't want to have to pass that sucker up. But so be very clear. If there's gonna be a little thing that your buyer wants, you know, maybe they do want the toaster oven that looks really retro. I have no idea. But if they really like it, put it in the RPA. There's not gonna be no harm in putting it down and having them say no. But most of the time, if it's reasonable, it's gonna be cool. When you're doing a reasonable offer and you want a few reasonable things, it just shows that you care about what you're getting. If you go crazy, you know, like I want every single furniture, you can't even take a light switch cover out of there. I want everything. I mean, it can get
Or
ridiculous.
this art on the wall, that whatever.
Yeah, they could ask for art.
Yeah.
They could ask for all kinds of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Now, are they, you know, offering way above list price because they want all the furniture?
That's up to your discretion to decide. Yeah.
But I mean, let's have that discussion. You could say to your client, that's not reasonable. That you want to ask that, but I'll ask it. But if they're offering $50,000 more for all the furniture, okay. I mean, in $1 million house, probably the furniture does cost $50,000. But just make sure you're having that discussion and do not have vague language. Like, my buyer kind of wants the furniture. Like, that doesn't help anybody. Or please leave furniture. We need to have it clear. I will pay this amount for all furniture. Or something like that. Or I want artwork on the north side in the living room for an extra $1,000 or something. But be very clear, don't be vague.
So additional terms always has to have something unless the buyer doesn't want anything. And then it could be blank if they don't care for anything.
I would just
They
put
want
none, I would either put none or non-applicable or whatever in there. I go by the reasoning, nothing will be left blank. Okay, there should not be an open field with nothing in it.
Which means the conversation was had with the buyer to do anything, no, so.
Exactly.
But it's not blank that later on, well, you didn't say.
Did you ask them? Yeah,
be very clear or put nothing if that's what they want.
Yeah. That's why I do not leave one thing blank. Because I had that discussion and we go through the SRPD, I'm gonna hammer this into you guys too, on the seller side. The SRPD is so critical. RPA, very critical. So go through it with caution and be very, very, like, really good about filling these things out. So here's a page where it actually has a scenario and actually has it filled out here as kind of what I want you guys to do when you get back to your desk and look at an RPA. So just put together your own scenario. Purchase price, loan type, down payment amount on FHA, 3.5% is typical. EMD, seller credits, close of escrow, post possession. Post possession means that after close of escrow, they may need a couple days to get out of the house. So after the escrow closes, typically what I see is you have 3 days. You give them 2 to 3 days. That way they can pack everything up, they can get movers, they can actually, the previous owner can leave. So 2 to 3 days is pretty regular unless it's vacant. Then they don't really need anything.
And then I'm sure there's a cheat sheet of like all these specific dates and deadlines, limitations legally of the escrow and the down payment and when they need to be out and appraisal when all these deadlines need to be met. I'm sure there's a cheat sheet of like, even though all things are average, of like, okay, even though it's an average of 2 or 3, but legally you have 7. Or, like a cheat sheet of like actual real deadlines, just the
There's
legal
not like,
timeline.
you're building the legal document. This is why you have to have discussion. There's standards,
And
there's typical, but you're building a legal contract. You're building the legality behind this deal.
so it's really just whatever's agreed upon, some are shorter, some are longer. There's no real legal, like, this is the max. Or the deal's gonna fall through and you have to get them, like, there's none of that. Okay.
Kind of important.
Yeah.
That's why I say, we want to say typical, right? We want to say due diligence is typical, 10 days. You need to understand what due diligence means. What goes into due diligence? Do you think a client knows what that is? You need to be an educator. Due diligence means we have to do 1, 2, 3 in 10 days. When you do your EMD, what's the EMD? We're going to say it because it's our language. Do you like it when your doctor says blah, blah, blah in their language? You don't understand it?
Google it, right?
Or you have to Google it yourself? No, we want them to explain what does that mean. It is your job to educate them because guess what? Throughout the whole process, their escrow officer, their title company, their loan officer, they're gonna hear EMD a dozen times. But who should have taught them what that means from the very beginning?
Representing them.
Correct. What does EMD mean? Not just the words. So it's your earnest money deposit. What does that mean?
Earnest money deposit is when they have purchased a residential purchase agreement done and the prospective buyer has agreed to a certain amount, $10,000 for the earnest to put to until all these other things are met, until they can then go into a final offer. Like basically they put money down where they have to go through all the timeline of getting everything else done within the timeline before they can then back out or, decide to, okay, yeah, we're keeping the house and that's just money that's kind of in good faith guaranteeing.
Good thing. So try to keep
If they're
them
serious, I guess.
That's it. It's like when I try to explain it, act like, and this is not an insult to anybody, act like you're explaining it to a 5-year-old. Because that's how much they know.
Good faith deposit.
So I typically will say, this is us agreeing, or this is us in good faith, saying that we want to complete the transaction. You're serious about buying that home. Because they're gonna, once they sign this RPA, they're not taking any other offers. They're pretty much saying that their house is stagnant. It's sitting out there, not getting offers, not doing.
They're taking a risk.
They're taking a risk.
This is
This is us coming together as one and saying that we're gonna work together. If it doesn't work out, that's fine. But within 10 days, we've agreed to take the steps to move this process forward. Okay,
And that's
like-
why Earnest goes to the broker, not the homeowner or the agent or the Earnest Money Deposit. It's held with
it's held in escrow.
an escrow.
And the EMD is never held by the broker, by the agent. It is held in a third-party escrow account. Do not accept an EMD. Do not let someone hand you a check or a wad of money in an envelope. Like, it is not your job. You cannot touch that money. That money is going towards the purchase of that house if everything goes great.
But it's sitting in a third party escrow, which
It's
at
third-
that point, the lender is setting up an escrow account.
So we have, no, the title company that's involved
Okay.
sets up an escrow account.
Okay.
So when an RPA is signed, we do something with our title company, whoever title is doing that, typically it's our title company. We reach out to them saying, I have an RPA. Please open an escrow for me. Attached is the RPA signed by the buyer and the seller.
Mhm.
Typically, you're gonna have pre-qualification papers or proof of funds. You're gonna attach all that, you're gonna send it to the escrow company and say, please open escrow for me.
Title.
They open up the account. They reach out to the buyer. They reach out with wire instructions. We are not involved. We do not get account information. We don't tell them where to wire it. We do not get involved in that. That's wire fraud.
Mhm.
So the escrow company assigns a number. They open an account. They send over the forms. The buyer then has the responsibility to follow those wire instructions and submit that wire to the escrow account that was given to them.
And as Jennifer mentioned the whole time, sometimes we're CC'd in these emails.
Yep.
But we're not getting any funds to ourselves and then transferring anything. It's direct.
Yep.
Then we're just in the communication.
Correct.
That's how it's right.
Yeah, so they keep you in communication. Sometimes, depending on the escrow company, they're not perfect about it, but when we use Landmark, they're really good about it. I will email Andy, I will say, please open escrow in the subject line, I'll put my clients, and then I'll say, I'll pull it out. Here's my RPA, here's my proof of funds, here's my qualification paperwork. Please assign an escrow number, and then here's my client's information. They send the wire instructions over to the client. We can be copied on that, like you don't give it crap. But then the client has to go to their bank, has to submit the wire
In that
directly
timeline.
in that timeline. And usually they have 1 to 2 days. Because guess what? The seller is not gonna sit there and go, I wonder if.
Wait 30 days for that money to come in. No, we know they're not.
So usually it's 1 to 2 days.
Right.
And the seller could keep on accepting offers at that point. It's nothing's locked in until that EMD is received.
Right.
So,
Money's received in their account.
right. So if Sally and Johnny are assigned to a school project, they're expected to do their portion to actually go in front of their class and prepare it, right? And do their sides. Without them coming together and agreeing, you have no project to work on. So,
Sometimes the seller's agent is also in the loop with this, because the seller's agent will also get notification of there's money in escrow now, or how will the seller's agent know, okay, we know it's an escrow now.
They're-
Obviously, we just want him to look there,
They're
and they need proof of funds as well,
well,
or it's just.
well, when you send the RPA over to the seller, you're gonna include, in most cases, proof of funds and approval or loan approval, pre-qualification. So,
Could be rare if there's not actual money there, they're just saying they qualified and it's an earnest money and you just communicate, okay.
well, once
We have a
the escrow company receives the money, they are communicating to all parties. But it is still your job to make sure everybody that knows. And people that aren't supposed to know,
Don't know,
don't know.
because it's wire transfer, it's
Right.
personal information.
You can't just throw everybody on an email and think, oh, they all have to know. You have to actually use your judgment and use your education and use your resources here to understand who does what.
Only
Okay.
that needs to be on the email, should be your name.
Right. So please do a practice one of these. I will put something out on the training calendar Slack of a practice one that you can print. Fill it out, make sure you understand it. Okay? Do a confidence check. Make sure the EMD versus down payment, what's the difference? Now, EMD counts as part of your down payment, but it's still separate. So I pay $10,000 for EMD. 90,000 in my down payment. Technically, you think that's only my down payment, right? No, they're added together. Once everything closes, I put 100 grand as down payment.
People always get confused with that part. I did.
I mean, you think
so
you're almost gonna lose the money. It feels like you've already lost it. Like you put it in, I'm not giving it out.
Right.
It feels like, okay, well, I'm just paying them to take it off the market. Remember, it's still their money. You're still putting it towards a home. Everything's cool. You are just providing, not a guarantee, but a good faith, a gesture
Right.
that you are moving forward.
In the perfect world, I used to think you put the whole down payment, like whatever down payment is, that's what earnest money deposit was, but it's
Yeah,
not, it's
yeah.
a portion of your down payment.
Correct. Okay, so I will send out a copy of that in Slack. Please print it out, set it up on your Adobe if you're able to fill things out on Adobe, like you can put in sections. Make sure you understand it. You want to understand what the EMD is, what the down payment is. Want you guys to fill in 1F. How is it calculated, the down payment? If someone says I'm paying 10%. And occupancy disclosure, we need to make sure you find out if they're gonna be occupying the building. It is not the point that they want privacy. We have to know if they're gonna occupy it or not. Is this an investment property or not? It doesn't matter if they're paying cash. It doesn't matter what they think that they can do with a house once they pay for it. We have to know.
Legally, we have to know.
Legally, you have to check that.
I'm nosy.
And they're signing this if they lie to you. If they say, just put I'm gonna be the occupant.
I'll be primary, but they have no intention to, or
They-
decide
they-
not to later.
If
It's
they
on them.
decide not to later, if they've gone through the whole escrow and now they say, I don't wanna occupy it, that's different, okay? They've already told you, and they've done all this legal thing saying that they're occupant. Their deal is done. At that point, you don't care.
It's up there.
But if you're sitting together and they say, this is an investment property, but go ahead and just put down on the occupant. You need to get someone involved.
Because they just told you, and you're the one liable for either omitting or
We don't-
lying or whatever.
We don't want to omit anything. We do not want to lie on the sake of our client. Are they signing? Yes, but guess what? Your signatures are on here too. You need to get a broker involved if that is going to be a conflict. You need to say, this is a contract, this is a legal document. They need to fill this out correctly. But if they say they're going to lie, you need to get a broker involved. Remember, we all roll up to our broker. Okay? So most of the time, they're going to choose to be dishonest. They're going to be dishonest with you too. And their name's on the paperwork and stuff. But it is very important that we know whether they're going to be the occupant of the home or they're not. Doesn't matter how they're going to pay. I don't care if they're Daddy Warbucks coming in with $1 million and just throwing it at your face. We still need to know what you're doing with them. Are you going to occupy or not? So make sure that you're filling that out. So choose a listing, draft a mock RPA, and bring it to leadership. I'm going to post one in the training channel on Slack. I want to get back mock RPAs. You can either bring them to me hard copy or scan them and send them to me or send me pictures from your phones.
Yeah, we did get some practice.
Let's
So
get some practice because when this comes up and someone is not sitting with you, I don't want you to be not being able to at least be able to explain the form.
that'd be-
Understand and explain. Now, we are going to continue this next week because we did not get further informed. But make sure that you do the math. Make sure the math, the occupancy, and the additional instructions are filled out in your mock area. So line number 30, your additional terms, all of page 1 also needs to be done. All right, so next week we will continue with this, but we're going to do a live demo only. Okay, because the slides are kind of slowing us down a bit, and I really want to get over to the MLS, and we're gonna do a live demo next week on the RPA. All right, thank you guys for joining, and stay around for success floor. Let's build our pipeline.
Be right back with you.